I'm Somasree Santra from the Department of English Language and Literature, School of Liberal Arts and Cultural Studies, Agnes University. And I will be talking about a few things related to modern European drama. This entire detail about modern European drama will be vastly elaborated by me. But before we get on to certain important concepts like the important works and as I overtly describe the important works, I would be focusing on the specific era, the background of modern European drama, how it originated, what are the important things behind it, how we can find that there were important developments during this time, what are the important movements, what were the circumstances, the social and the political circumstances that led to the development of this drama and all these things. I'm going to talk about it. Before we move on to the modern European drama, we need to focus on few important aspects. Like modern European drama, it refers to the body of work that was published by several eminent European playwrights in the modern age, from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. Since the Elizabethan era, drama or playwriting was a popular form of literature and art in England. But over the years, change in social and political atmosphere brought about many modifications in the genre of drama. The pioneers of European drama brought about many changes in the form and technique of playwriting that differentiated them from their predecessors. A very important thing to note down here. They pour over everyday, real world, domestic issues and highlighted naturalism and realism through their works. Though it is difficult to club together all the works under one thematic framework, however, we may identify that some common themes in the works that constitute European drama. Some of the themes are realism, naturalism, modernism, social criticism, modern tragedy, absurdity, and others. Absurdity, alienation, realism, these things will be very much stressed upon by me in the other parts of my lectures related to modern European drama, where I am going to stress on these things in utmost detail. So, coming to the aspects related to the background. Marking a departure from Romanticism, themes from remote past and heroic grandeur, modern playwrights of European drama tried to create their works around the themes of middle class and contemporary societies. This particular realistic description of everyday life made theatre a medium of exchanging ideas with the audience, and it created a mass appeal for this place. The characters of these plays were asked to act with the help of natural dialogues, gestures, less melodrama. European drama has been developed by a number of playwrights who wrote during the late 19th and early 20th century. These dramatists contributed to avant-garde, quote-unquote, theatre that became a dominating theme of European drama. They experimented with the theme and style of drama and presented a new taste to the audience. We have identified four major dramatists for our study. These playwrights gave European drama its essence of satire, realism, absurdity, and comedy. As we try to understand the themes, issues, the socio-political factors related to these analogies, we get into the entire structure of this dramatic orientation that is particularly focused on the utmost characteristic aspects of modern European drama as whole. So, if we talk about the early 19th century, most of the European playwrights drew their tragic plots from the ancient myths of legendary history and their comic material from a repertoire of stock characters and attitudes. These choices of dramatic subjects reflect their priorities that endured from the days of Periclean Athens to the middle of the 18th century. On the other hand, these particular choices demonstrate a belief that truly important things happen only to those who were high on the social scale. On the other, they show that artists tasted their abilities not so much through innovation as by imitation. Thus, familiar plots and characters continued to be worth writing about new talent and revealed itself by finding new ways to dramatize old truths. One important thing to take into mind that by 1750s there were some changes that were brewing, political revolution, and it began to affect the drama. More and more plays began focusing on the trials and tribulations of those of the lower rungs of the social ladder. For this so-called bourgeois drama emerged a transformation that culminates in one of the great periods of theatrical activity, the modern era, which began around 1870. Interest in the experience of ordinary people reached to the peak, to the highest point with Romanticism and its exaltation of the commonplace. The poor invited little notice in the pre-18th century literature. When 19th century writers turned their attention towards lives, they began, quote unquote, romanticizing them. However dirty and boring common life was, the Romantic artists saw it in the trace of Edenic innocence. Lives not lived in palaces, but were somehow perceived as being unspoiled. If the dramatic subjects chosen by these early romantics were wider ranging than those chosen by the ancients, the treatment the subjects received, as we have suggested, was far more realistic. The tendency to idealize the poor also led to the glorification of the outlaw, a sign of the revolutions that were to come. Adding to this, a newly self conscious nationalism found expression in a variety of historical dramas that extolled to often lost causes liberty and nationhood. Coming to how we understand the theoretical basis for drama. Romantic ideas emerged very early in Germany in the work of three major playwrights: Gotthold Ephraim Lessing, Johann Christoph Friedrich von Schiller, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. These writers articulated new theoretical justifications for their choice of dramatic material. As admirers of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, as we are already aware, to whom the neoclassicists had condensed on account of his indifference to rules, Lessing and Schiller in particular championed diversity and freedom in theatrical texts. The most prolific playwrights of these three Schiller especially widened the range of theatrical plots. When he turned to the past for his subjects, he did not select the mythological figures who attracted Goethe, but rather the patriots of relatively recent European history. Prime among them were Joan of Arc, to whom the title The Maid of Orleans refers, and William Tell, the Swiss national hero. A very important aspect coming to this, that's the closet drama. At its very height, we find that there were theatrical performances which many poets turned into, and they tried to produce this understanding that there can be certain important developments of drama wherein there can be newer conventions which could be regarded as a diverse shift from the old, from the convention. If we talk about the revolutionary ideas and how it collapsed, we can understand that there were great hopes of the early Romantic period and of the early days of the French Revolution, but these were dampened. Many were drowned in the events of the Reign of Terror, the reaction, and the Napoleonic Wars. Generous liberal principles and gestures of the early revolution faded away in war and ultimately were defeated. Romantic hopes and the revolution united the downtrodden, but at the same time vanished as ideological differences among conservatives, liberals, radicals, and also divided classes, groups, nations, and individuals. Once we understand the very core of modern European drama, we are able to find out that there were certain important developments in Paris as well by Gustave Caillebotte, where and also in the mid 19th century Europe, we find the Boulevard Theatre, which luxuriated in the profits of industrial progress, not only in France, but also at the time in this particular continent, when new ruling classes based on wealth rather than intellect or inheritance wielded power. The theatre, always a barometer of social change, celebrated its achievements, and moneyed audiences gloried in a style of drama that catered to their tastes. Since Parisian tastes were especially crucial to the development of modern drama, we can focus on particular playwrights who also declared themselves as entrepreneurs in this particular climate, giving the public a sellable product. We have realist dramatists during this period, such as Eugene Scribe, Alexandre Dumas, Victorien Sardou, and also as we find certain literary aspects that has been extended out in the Boulevard drama, it actually initiated a particular reign. Talking about the audience for whom these entire dramas were drafted. The superior technical resources of the theatres built in the 19th century depended in a larger part upon the proscenium arc, which framed the stage and created a clean break between the playing area and the audience. Associated with the development of fixed perspective in Renaissance Italy, the proscenium marches made possible the visually convincing realistic backdrops that proliferated in the 1800s. Firstly, we need to understand about the permanent theatre that was built in proscenium arc and was created for Cardinal Richelieu's palace in 1641. As new theatres were built throughout the 18th and the 19th centuries, proscenium arcs got higher and thicker and became more imposing. Paradoxically, we can understand that it was the viewer's eye that got, in fact, more prominent during this particular time. Modern drama, as we are already aware of this particular insight, we can understand that this was the time, I'm talking about the modern period, that this was the time when there were important changes resulting out of the World War, and there was widespread lack of trust, lack of uh, what to say, the nihilism, widespread nihilism, lack of faith in God, and all these things that came out together. If we understand the modern European drama as whole, we would be very much precisely gaining the insight that the glorious days of the Elizabethan drama were followed by a long period of decline and eclipse. The post-Elizabethan vainly endeavored to capture the graces of Shakespeare and other illustrious predecessors, while the heroic tragedies and the comedy of love and intrigue during the Restoration hardly added any glorious chapter to the history of English dramatic literature. If we talk about Goldsmith and Sheridan, they attempted a partial revival in the 18th century, but their sporadic brilliance was followed by a spell of darkness, which spread for almost a century. For between 1779, the year of prominence of Sheridan's last important play, and 1876, when Pinero's first play was staged, English drama was practically barren. The later 18th century witnessed the rise of great actors, but not great playwrights. And it is an accepted rule when acting flourishes, the drama languishes. Melodramatic, sensational, and unrealistic plays alone were popular. A play was written not with a view to depicting life and character, but for providing sufficient scope for lusty lungs of declamatory actor. Playwriting was done mostly by hack writers who sacrificed both art and realism in trying to eke out a living by writing to the dictates of theatre managers, producers, and actors. English drama was at a very low ebb when T.W. Robertson, a playwright and actor, appeared on the scene, fully alive to the lack of realism and low artistic tone of the drama of his day. He determined to import realism into drama and raise its artistic level. The year was 1865, which witnessed the performance of his play. Society proved a landmark in the revival of the English stage. The revival manifested itself in stress on realism, both in subject matter and technique. In place of types and stock characters, Robertson presented individual men and women, person of flesh and blood. In the matter of technique and form, he discarded blank verse and rhetoric in favor of natural and human speech. Robertson, however, was not a bold or revolutionary spirit, and he could not divest himself of the old traditions, such as romantic melodrama. He therefore failed to exercise any substantial influence on his contemporaries, and the much needed reform in drama required a more daring literary genius. So, what would be the significant works during this particular time? The darling genius was found to some extent in Arthur Wayne Pioneer and H.A. Jones, who made pretty serious efforts to drive away undiluted romanticism from the English stage. An expert craftsman, Pinero, had the courage to introduce several innovations in dramatic technique. In his The Second Mrs. Thackeray, produced in 1893, he played the pioneer in discarding the soliloquy and the aside along with certain other old stage conventions, thus bringing drama closer to life. Pinero and Jones, however, he could not be sufficiently darling to ignore the public taste altogether. Though Jones wrote in his preface to Saints and Sinners in 1884 that playwriting should not be merely the art of sensational and spectacular delusion, but mainly and chiefly the art of representing English life. He could not avoid in his plays theatrical excitement and too much use of coincidence just to humor the audience. Hence, the realism of these dramatists was skin deep, not to the genuine stuff which subsequent playwrights were to provide. The person who infused the real new revolutionary blood into English drama was Henrik Ibsen, a Norwegian playwright. He was introduced to English audiences by J.T. Grein, a Dutchman, in 1890. In England, William Archer, the famous dramatic critic, enthusiastically espoused Ibsen's cause. Through Ibsen's genuine realism was introduced in English plays. Ibsen's characters are drawn from ordinary life, and characterization in his plays receives more attention than the patching up of well-lit plot. However, the plot in his plays were essentially psychological, leaving little room for pure action or incident. The Ibsenian play is essentially a drama of ideas, of characters who with ideas struggle against the forces of convention and society. Ibsen's ideas gave a rude shock to the susceptibilities of his contemporaries, but he was bold enough to stick to his theories and technique. Consequently, he exercised a great influence all over the continent, and the drama of ideas of revolt against society and convention came to stay. The tyranny of the star system and the strange hold of the commercial minded theatre managers could no longer throttle down the true dramatic art. The renaissance of modern drama was in full swing with the advent of Ibsen. If William Archer propagated the plays of Ibsen, it was Shaw. He imported the real Ibsen spirit into English drama. Highly original and independent in many ways, Shaw was immensely influenced by the plays of Ibsen, and like him, he became the champion of conferring the new freedom of subject matter and technique on English drama. Since the appearance of his first play, Widowers' Houses, in 1892, Shaw strode on the English stage like a versatile titan, almost in the end of his days. Among modern English dramatists, he proved the most zealous advocate of rationalism and realism, brushing aside the Victorian cobwebs, a proper climate for a drama of ideas, enlarging the dramatist's vision, and above all, slowly forging an appreciative and responsive intellectual audience for his problem plays. The volume of his dramatic production was so wide and varied that it is not possible within the limited space to do justice to the great services which he rendered to the British drama. In his Arms and Man, Candida, Man and Superman, St. John, we can find that English drama again into its own provided inspiration and guidance to the other playwright. Coming to a very much deeper account into the particular ideas that were followed by the Irish movement, that were followed by Henrik Ibsen, and very importantly, before that, the features. The phase of modern drama found its revival of the poetic drama alongside of the naturalistic and realistic plays. The plays of Yeats were poetic to a certain extent, but the Irish theatre eventually drifted from poetry towards realism. In England, poetic drama found its first exponent in Stephen Phillips, whose blank verse plays enjoyed considerable popularity in the first years of the century. If we talk about Stephen Phillips, he possessed a considerable dramatic genius, but his poetic talent was not quite high. So he failed to work a revival of poetic drama. We find that John Drinkwater and John Mansfield, who brought about the actual revival of poetic drama, they did not attempt to write in blank verse, and they escaped comparison with great Shakespeare. He produced 4 poetic plays, but used both prose and verse in them. Finally, he gave up poetic drama altogether and wrote only in prose. He gave up the poetic drama and, as a masterpiece, Abraham Lincoln, a play on the life of the American president himself. He also wrote Cromwell and Mary Stuart, which are considered to be historical. Masefield chose at first the biblical or the historical subjects and experiment diversely with the lyrical meters. As we understand, the tragedy of None, which presented a picture of the rustic cruelty, though it is not without certain element of tragic grandeur. Amongst the other important aspects, we find that modern British drama, it was a period of literature. This European drama, which was very much difficult to place within a distinct beginning and end, because of course history is never ending. It is really hard to classify when one era starts and another finishes. Since literature does not change overnight, there is not one straight apparent line that could point out the transformation of thematic elements of style. So people must look at a wide range of literary elements to find the patterns, the gradual changes to categorize a specific time of literature. During the Victorian era, Britain was constrained by a rigid classic system, the system of the classes, because there were many people, including those related to the arts, who dealt with the inability to obtain any sort of individualism. The elite dominated the British culture, therefore, they were at the forefront of the nation's expansion amongst the arts. For that particular reason, modern European drama became an era that focused on finding and receiving its own true identity. If we talk about the modern European drama, the entire theatrical aspects that was adhered to it, we can find that there were important works which used to present various social situations and merely at the sake of exposure. Instead of that, the political messages, one by one, were created to criticize and condemn the overtly social structure. Too many dramatists had ideas on the man-made social system, so limiting and irrational that it must be mocked. This apparent flaw of the social structure can be seen even in works like Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. Harold Pinter, in his work Betrayal, we find has added a particular aspect to the structure of political feature. which was again another development during this time. An unique aspect of modern European drama is its portrayal of ethical and unethical situations, which pushes the audience to contemplate morality. Betrayal is a fine example of using immoral material to provoke humor amongst the audience. In reality, there is nothing funny about betrayal and lying, but Pinter manages to keep the audience laughing by incorporating comedic material within the play. However, this humorous technique can also ignite a question of morals within the audience. While the audience are sitting there laughing at the lack of values, these characters they typify not only one but all these elements and features of the play. They typify the combination of social and political involvement. The direct influence of this modern European drama was relentlessly and on a very fast pace was falling on the audience. And not only on the audience, but on the general mass. Interestingly enough, Harold Pinter used to give his plays to Tom Stoppard for editing, commentary, and suggestions before he sent it to the stage. The inability for one to control personal destiny or fate is a thematic link that can be seen between betrayal and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are dead. As we understand these particular writings that had important influences on modern European drama, be it the theatre and the modern world, and as we talk about the modern world, we also have important, well made, and melodramatic plays. For example, by August Strindberg, who created certain logical dramatic rules, Anton Chekhov, and also, as we understand the features of modern European drama, we talk about the independent theatre movement, that's naturalism. And naturalist theatres included Andre Antonioni's Theatre Libre in Paris, the theatre in London, Otto Brahms, and also certain important theatres such as the Moscow Art Theatre. Naturalism originated in 1960s in France as a movement, and along with that, naturalism grew out of an interest in Darwin's theories about creatures, their survivability, natural selection, and dependence on the environment. Also, we have modern acting, aestheticism and symbolism, theatre and avant-garde, political theatre that was created on by Bertolt Brecht, who was one of the most influential political playwrights of avant-garde movement. He developed the epic theatre, one of the important changes during the modern European drama. The epic theatre that relied upon the techniques that interrupted the flow of plot and acting, which Brecht felt would lead to contemplation rather than observation of spectacle. Arvind Piscator taught Brecht the value of using film and other art forms in theatre, which led to the collaborations with composers using cartwheel. We also witness cultural renewal as a part of the modern European drama. Apart from that, we have tragedy, very importantly, meta tragedy and meta theatre. The war, revolution, depression, 1900 to 1945. This created certain important evolutions in modern drama as whole. We also have particular important insights as we understand certain important characteristic outcome that came out as major themes, be it related to class, gentility and manners, marriage and prostitutions, the myths of creation, language, professionalism, gender solidarity or antagonism, as we can find all over in the plays of George Bernard Shaw, who was very much influenced by the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen. We have important works who were considered to be the four founders of the absurdist drama, the absurdist playwrights, Samuel Beckett and Harold Pinter. Samuel Beckett's a very important work, Waiting for Godot, and Harold Pinter's works such as Birthday Party, or in fact The Caretaker, which would be our primary focus of study as we move ahead with modern European drama. Undoubtedly, Anton Chekhov's Cherry Orchard is also a very wonderful, important modern European drama that actually brought about certain changes within this entire history of modern European drama and has created certain important standards. We also have Bertolt Brecht important ideas of alienation, ideas of oblivion, nothingness, and also important things related to the absolute removal of the fourth wall. The fourth wall, that was the wall created between the audience and the characters. So, with all these developments, we have a wonderful aspect that was developed during the time of modern European drama. And with this, I am ending my first part of the elaboration on modern European drama that was solely based on the social and political structures, the development during this time, the important features of modern European drama, precisely the entire background of modern European drama.